feel more nervous this week than I did last week. So for those of you who were not here last week, I'm going to do a brief review to set the stage for this evening. I think a refresher can help those of us who were also here last week, including me. I won't speak as long as I did last week, just mostly a few refresher comments and then a little bit more information on what I call stuck energy. And then we'll go to work with the rest of the evening being spent bathing ourselves in solfeggio vibrations, around which I will weave an affirmative new thought prayer. Just as a reminder, when I work with people one-on-one, my first goal is to create a safe container for people to raise their energy, which also involves releasing old stuck energy that no longer serves. My conundrum when I was looking at doing this service was how to do that in a group setting. And if you ask, you get an answer, and that answer came in the form of solfeggio frequencies. And I'll just, for those of you who are new, that came about during a conversation with my mentor. She had mentioned that she had used solfeggio frequencies during her healing services at her church community, and people were noticing changes. And as I said last week, the story for me got really intriguing when someone who rents their building, who was an energy worker, came into my mentor's office the day after a healing service and said, "What were you guys doing? Because I can feel a difference." And she didn't know that there had been a healing service the night before, so there was no way for her to know that something had transpired. And that, for me, was really exciting, the fact that she could walk in and feel the difference in the building after the service had happened. And I thought that was, for me, the answer to helping to create a safe container. The work that I do privately has led me to the conclusion that a safe container is important if we're going to release old, stagnant energy that no longer serves us. Partly because this old energy is so familiar to us. It's as familiar to us as the face that we see in the mirror each morning. And it's been a part of us for so long that we actually forget that it isn't us. And I know you all know what that feels like. When you finally bump into something, you go, "Oh, that really wasn't me." But when we do start to try and release that really old stuck energy, it can be kind of frightening because it feels like we're actually cutting off a part of ourselves. It's hard to distinguish between it and us. And so it can feel a little scary. And so the safer that we can make our bodies, the safer that we can make ourselves feel, the easier it is for us to release that, or even to entertain the thought of letting that go. And when I work with people one-on-one, how I see, and it actually was really fun because I just got validated by this when I read an energy book and somebody else was drawing what they see. I see energy either moving or not moving, stuck or moving. And I think personally that stuck emotions or stuck experiences are what cause problems for us. Energy, at least in this world of form, is supposed to be in movement. And it moves faster or slower depending on the form, but it's always moving. And when we have an experience that we get stuck on, has anyone here ever gone round and round for like minutes or hours or days or months on that same thing, that same conversation in your head, or that same experience that you just keep chewing on it and chewing on it and chewing on it? Or you ever have a conversation or a person that you find yourself in resistance to or pushing against? When we do that, we actually kind of create an energy ball. And that energy ball, it gets slower and kind of gummier, full of resistance, and it slows our energetic self down. I call it resistance. And these kind of, if when you have an experience like that and the initial situation gets resolved, or if you are able to process the feelings and move on, then your energy goes back into motion. And I know you've had that experience too, where you have something that happens, you work through it, you get to the other side, and it's almost like somebody brings it up a few months later and you can hardly even remember it because you actually moved through it and you released the energy knot that was there. I think this is the energetic version of what Rabbi Ted is speaking about when he says, forgiveness is accepting the past just the way that it is. When we don't have resistance around something, we can let it go, and the energy is moving, and we're not hanging on to it. We're not dragging it around like that old proverbial ball and chain. We literally pull our energy out of the stuck places, and we free it to go back into motion. Sometimes this release can create some discomfort, and a few of you came up last week and said, wow, I kind of had this odd experience in my body, or this odd emotional experience. And that's not uncommon as you're releasing something. But if you stay with the process, if you stop, then you'll be doing the same thing. You're like clenching and stopping that energy from moving. But if you stay with the process and just go into that resistless space, you will go ahead and process it, and it will pass, and your energy will move more freely. I believe that when your energy moves more freely, you are at choice. When your energy is stuck, you are bound by the reaction that comes from that energy not being in movement. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Okay, so many people have said to me as their energy starts to move again that they can see the same situation in a new way, that the opinion that they thought was fixed wasn't really so fixed. And this has happened for me all the time. When I get my energy moving, I'm more free. I'm more at choice. I can see things differently because I'm not stuck on the energy that's not moving. And thus, as we talked about last week, willingness is an important ingredient as well. And so again, tonight, I'm going to ask you to be willing to be willing. A willingness not just to be healed, but a willingness to release those old patterns and beliefs that we cherish so dearly and that we think serve us. I'm going to ask you again to remember Myrtle. She released and transformed all that she thought was the not good stuff. She looked at her faults and let all that stuff go. But then Spirit instructed her to look where her beliefs were in her so-called virtues. And Myrtle discovered where she was out of integrity with herself. So we too must be willing to release that which we're so certain that we're right about. We must be willing to make room for a new truth, a new answer, a new perspective, a broader perspective. And the more willing you are to welcome that change, and sometimes that does start as, I'm just willing to be willing. We know we're not quite there yet, but even that willingness to be willing cracks open that door and allows the smallest little bit of energy to move, which eventually will allow everything to move. So just being willing to be willing can help us make room for that transformation. And so tonight, together, we'll be creating a container for change. Tonight, I'm excited to introduce you to solfeggio frequency number 432, also known as Verdi's A. And this was an interesting fact. 432 hertz was the music tuning standard prior to today's tuning of 440 hertz. And I'm sure Dr. R will be able to tell us much more about that than I could. But I encourage you to have some fun with Google and learn more about the history of that. 432 hertz is reputed to have the potential to synchronize both hemispheres of our brain, creating what scientists call whole brain synchronization, which maximizes our potential as thinkers, as artists, and as spiritual beings. And 432 hertz music is said to resonate inside the body, releasing emotional blockages, woot, heightening perception, increasing mental clarity, and unlocking tuition. In a 2016 study by the American Society of Endodontists, found that patients who listened to 432 hertz music before, during, and after root canal operations experienced less anxiety. And this soothing of the nerves led to an improvement in associated vital signs, including lower systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure, and heart rate. Enough of the facts. So before we begin, I'd like to bring your awareness to more of who you are. If you're able, would you stand? And if you're not able, that's fine. Your neighbor standing next to you will give you the space to do this. Raise your arms out to the side. In my energy education, I was taught that's how big you really are. And if you turn your arms a little bit to the front and the back, that's how big you really are as an individuation of, as an individuated energy being. This is approximately the circumference of you as an individuated energy being. Close your eyes for a minute and just feel into that space. How does that feel? Does that feel bigger than you normally feel? Or does that feel smaller than you normally feel? And no judgment, doesn't matter which way. Just notice, how do we normally walk around? A lot of us walk around about half that size. Some of us walk around really spread out. And you may not, if you think about it, you may not have really any awareness, but sometimes even just spreading your arms and going, oh yeah, I'm never that big, or wow, I'm usually, I can't even touch the edges of myself. But when we are kind of at rest and in a good space, that's about how big we are. So go ahead and sit back down. And then during the next 35 minutes or so, as we're doing this work, just try and bring your attention periodically to just an awareness of how big you are. And try not to get into, oh God, is my aura bumping into the guy next door? Am I overlapping? It's all right. But when we actually start to have an awareness of who we are as an energetic being, I think it takes us away from limiting ourselves to just this, because we can walk around thinking that we are just this. Sometimes if we're lucky, we walk around and we're thinking we're just this. But we really are this. We're so much more than we think we are. And if we allow ourselves to fully expand into the fullness of who we are, we have all of that energy to work with as we're creating what we're creating as we go through life. Okay. Again, like last week, I'd like to start by having you focus on what it is that you're wanting to manifest, and then go back of it. For example, if you're wanting a romantic relationship, go back of it to love. Become a container for love. Become the embodiment of love. Become a vessel of love. Because that's really what you're wanting. Back of it is that love. If you're wanting a physical healing, go back of it. Become a vessel for joy, for wholeness, for abundance, for freedom. What would a physical healing really bring you? Think about that and be there. If you're wanting more financial abundance, go back of that to the infinite nature of supply. Feel into what being immersed in that abundance would feel like. Joyful, free, at ease. Those are God qualities. Be there. So, are you ready? Okay. Please place both your feet on the floor and allow your body to relax and allow your eyes to gently close. And imagine you're in a place in nature where you go, and your body relaxes. If it's by the water, imagine that you're sitting on a rock that goes deep into the sand or soil. Imagine it's the most comfortable rock you have ever sat on, perfectly molded to your body. Or if you're in the mountains or forest, imagine sitting on an old tree stump. Again, the most comfortable tree stump you've ever sat on. And that its roots go deep, deep, deep into the soil. And as your body relaxes, let's again enter that world within, that world where no lines are drawn, no boundaries or edges exist, where all is one. Breathe deeply into that space in and around your heart, and acknowledge the one life that is the only thing happening. The only thing happening. And tonight I'm going to begin again with the affirmative prayer that Dr. Richard wrote, because it's one of my favorites. And I think it sets the energetic tone so well. And then during the course of the next 30 minutes or so, I will add to the prayer just to emphasize the container that we're wanting to hold, and to continually remind us of that capital T truth of who we really are. And this will not disturb the work of the solfeggio. It will just serve to hold a container. So let your first prayer, in all things, be for a consciousness which can support all the good you desire to experience. Let your first prayer in all things be for a consciousness which can support all the good you desire. This is the prayer which will catapult you into a life of steadfast, serendipitous wonder. And the only thing you'll have to relinquish to experience this is the illusion that you know what's best for your life. The flower doesn't know how to grow its bloom. The human doesn't know how to beat its heart. The planet doesn't know how to navigate its path. And yet there's a wisdom within each of these things which does know how to grow the flower's bloom, which does know how to beat the human's heart, which does know how to navigate the planet's path, each with startling precision. And you are a unique expression of this wisdom, this one life, which forever explores the limitlessness of its world through the limitlessness of its creation. You are a once-in-a-lifetime individualization of the only life that exists. There has never been another you. There will never be another you. And you are immersed in limitless possibility regarding every area of your life. And this being true, let our first prayer in all things be for a consciousness which can support all the good we desire to experience. There's only one life, one magnificent life, which is everywhere present, every when present. It is infinite. There are no edges. It is all places. And that means it is right where we are. It is right what we are. And therefore we can know that all that is true of it is true of us right now. Our only work is to allow that to be. So let us hold the truth of that, of ourselves, as part and parcel of this one life. And notice the fullness of who you are. Let yourself relax into the fullness of who you are. If you notice anything that seems out of harmony with the fullness of love, with the fullness of peace, with the fullness of power, of life. Become resistless to it. Just let it be. Let it unwind itself and fall gently through you, deep into the earth, where it is recycled. And let the vibrations of this solfeggio music fill you and move into the places that you have let things go from. Or imagine that it transforms those places and lifts them into a higher vibration. And know that by doing so, you are vibrating just a little bit higher. There is one life that is coursing through every cell of our body, through every particle of our being. We are made of it because there is nothing else to be made out of. So we are light beings. We are love beings. We are life beings. And the power that courses through the universe, holding planets in perfect harmony, whirling galaxies effortlessly, is the same power that is coursing through every cell of our body, through every part of our individuated energetic self. That power is fully available to you right now. again, as you sit in this energetic vibration, feel around in your body and around you in your energetic body. And just notice if there are any places of discord, any places that feel tight, any anxieties, any fears, or any places that just seem slower. And breathe into them. Breathe that vibration into them. Allow the frequency to just intermingle with that. Loosen it up. And as that hard space increases in its own vibration because of what you are doing, because of your intention, your whole energetic self raises just a little bit more in vibration. You become a little bit more free, a little bit more at choice. And we lean again more deeply into the truth that there is one life, one power, one presence, one wisdom that is right where you are, that is who you are. That wisdom and its guidance is available to you right now. Know the truth of that. Let it find expression in you, as you. And as you do, feel again around in your body, in your energetic self, and notice if there is any place that seems to be even in the slightest bit of rebellion to that idea that you are wisdom manifest. Any old habits of thought, any old beliefs, and just breathe into them. Allow these frequencies that you are bathing yourself in to wiggle their way into those places and loosen them up, break them up, like old calcified bits of flotsam and jetsam. And let that fall away. That old calcified, slower vibration, just let it fall away and be replaced by this higher vibration. And let your energy raise just a little bit more. Get comfortable here. And embrace a little bit more deeply that truth of the oneness of who and what you are. That this one infinite life, this one presence, this one wisdom, this one power, as individuated as each one of us. And each one of us is a full expression of that one life. Embrace that just a little bit more. Let it wiggle its way into your bones. And knowing as you do so that all that is true of it is true of you, because it cannot be any other way. There is only one thing. as you expand and embrace that truth a little bit harder, a little bit stronger, a little bit deeper, notice if anything that arises that appears to want to counter that. And breathe that knowing of the truth that you now claim into that spot. Knowing that as you do so, you raise the vibration of it, and that you are sitting in a safe space, surrounded by a vibratory field that allows you to do just that. If any fear comes up, if any old habitual thinking or habits come up, just keep breathing into them. Become absolutely resistless to them. They are clouds floating by. Allow them to dissolve. And let your energy raise just a little bit more. And now once more, feel into the totality of who you are and know the truth of you. Know that you are light and life and love and wisdom and power. And that is available to you in infinite measure. Know yourself as a little bit more at choice, a little bit freer, a little bit fuller. And allow a sense of gratitude to arise within, just for simply knowing this marvelous, magnificent truth. For this expanded vision of who you are, this expanded knowing. Allow yourself to be fully that. And so it is. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and take stock of how you feel. I don't know how you guys feel, but you look amazing. What a kick. Does anyone feel any different than when they walked in tonight? Yeah. Cool. So there are a few prayer chaplains that are here tonight that are sometimes, like we talked about last week, when we do work like this, sometimes stuff comes up, and sometimes in the space of this time, it doesn't feel completely resolved. So feel free to sit with a prayer chaplain. They're happy to either do verbal prayer with you or just do healing energy. I would like everyone, please, to feel grounded before you get in your car. So if you're feeling a little bit lightheaded or whatever, just hang out for a little bit until you feel like you can drive home safely. And if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer questions. Beaming. I wish you could see. You should come up and take a look at yourselves. There's some glowing going on out there. So, yeah, just notice if you feel different than when you walked in, and notice if you're like expanded was a word that came up. Feel into that and feel what that feels like, and try to carry it with you. So that you can hang on to it, so that you can vibrate here more of the time. The solfeggio frequencies we talked about last week again, great to play with at home. Different people asked, can I listen to it for hours and hours and hours and hours? And I just say, pay attention to yourself. As you listen, as you start to raise your vibration, again, as we talked about last week, you start to reveal the stuff that isn't moving, just because of the difference in the vibration, the vibratory field. Things that are moving slower, it's kind of like the ball and chain I talked about. It's just heavier, so it makes it more difficult for your energy to all over to raise up. So as you start to do that, you start to notice the difference. And if you start, sometimes it will make people feel anxious or nervous. Again, it's just that because you're making a change. And just, then take a break from the solfeggio music if that's what you're feeling, and just breathe into it. And as much as possible, just try to not resist what's coming up. Just let it be, and it will because it's starting to be in motion again, and it will work its way out, and move on, and you'll be a little bit freer, a little bit more at choice. So, thank you. This was a nice frequency, and just for anyone that's having insomnia, I've been using this one to go to sleep and to put me back to sleep when I wake up, and it's been really nice. And you can find short tracks online. Pardon? What was the website I sent you, Julie? Is it Mind Vibrations or something? It's like $7.99 for a 1-hour track. It's $7.99 for each different frequency. But there's different places online. YouTube has them, and just like I mentioned last week, YouTube will often have commercials, and so right in the middle of your thing, you may get a Geico commercial or whatever. Okay, cool. Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, Amazon then. I'm sorry? This one was $4.32. Yeah. And yeah. SOLFEGGIO. So. Well, thank you all for coming. I super appreciate your support. And there's two more Wednesdays, and then we're considering if it's something that people want to do. I'll probably have some sort of a questionnaire on the last one, and if it's something that people might want to continue doing once a month or so in the new year, we may take a look at doing that. So. Okay.